with the Tritone spell, like that was one shifting point of the band. Not like completely changing the sound of the band, but like introducing many elements that weren't there before. I don't say that Tritone spell is compromised in any way. It's nothing like that, but it was kind of giving a new direction, and this new album is like getting the most of it.
Greetings, Legion. Welcome to episode 291 of Into the Necrosphere. This week, I am very pleased to welcome to the show for the first time Harri Kuokkanen from the band Hooded Menace out of Finland. Their brand new album is entitled Lachrymose Monuments of Obscuration. It absolutely slaps, and Harri was on hand to tell us all about the making of the album. We also spoke about some of his projects outside of Hooded Menace, including his fantastic black metal band Hail Conjurer. And over the course of our conversation, we uncovered that Harri is a big fan of the music of Glenn Danzig. So naturally, we had to do a deep dive into everything from the Misfits to Samhain through to Danzig's solo work. It is a fantastic interview. It is coming your way very shortly, but before we get to that, I have me a hankering for some Unsanctioned Filth. For this week's Unsanctioned Filth segment, we travel back to the mean streets of London, England. The band in question is Corpsing. Many of you will be familiar with them. They brought out an EP earlier this year called Viewing the Invisible. They now have a live EP coming up, and to give you a first taste of what that sounds like, this is a live recording of the song Be the Pack.
This one is entitled Be the Pack.
Recorded at the legendary Black Heart venue in London, that was Corpsing with a song called Be the Pack. That, of course, was recorded earlier this year. It will feature on their upcoming live EP, details to be confirmed, but I will post the Corpsing Bandcamp link in the description to the podcast. So as always, head over there, buy yourself some music if you like what you heard, and let the Corpsing lads know that it was old Jackson at Into the Necrosphere who sent you. Of course, you can also submit music to me if you're in an unsigned band and you want me to hear what it sounds like. The email address, very easy to remember, intothenecrosphere@gmail.com. You can also hit me up on Instagram, Facebook, or X. If I like what I hear, if it is Necrosphere approved, it'll be featured on the Unsanctioned Filth segment of the podcast. You will go on to fame, fortune, and glory, but whatever happens to your band, you will never again scale the heights. That is a feature on the Into the Necrosphere Unsanctioned Filth segment. Friends, if you're new to the podcast, allow me to remind you that I am a card-carrying member of the Cosa Nostra of podcasting, known as the Horsemen of the Podcasting Apocalypse. We are dedicated to crushing mediocrity, to vanquishing it from your eardrums every single day of the week, virtually every single day of the week. On a Monday, we've got a dose of Horrible 666, and that's brought to you by Brandon Legion. On a Tuesday, yours truly casts hexes and slays poses right here on Into the Necrosphere. On a Wednesday, we've got your first double shot. It starts with Everything Went Black, hosted by Mike Hill from the band Tombs. His new album is due out very soon, and I recorded an absolutely sensational episode with him yesterday. You can expect that to drop in about 2 to 3 weeks' time. The album is called Feral Darkness. It will undoubtedly be one of your favorite records of 2025, so make sure that you keep your eyes peeled for that. And then a man whose album has been out for some time now, Cheyenne from the band Trivax. The Great Satan dropped back in May. It has gotten a lot of attention, and justifiably so. He, of course, brings you another episode of his podcast, Iblis Manifestations, as part of our Double Shot Wednesday, and it is something that you definitely cannot afford to miss. Speaking of which, on a Thursday, we've got Necromaniacs. That is hosted by a returning Mike Hill. He is joined by his co-hosts, the Sheriff Mike Scondado and the Professor Jeff Kashid. They review new and old horror movies. It is always a super entertaining and super fun time listening to those guys. It is a podcast I absolutely never miss. We also have on a Thursday, and then coming back on a Sunday, the Sinister Minister, Carl Haikara, a man who takes you through the dark, the weird, the arcane, and the esoteric in whichever format and fancy he chooses. And once again, Soul Knox, always a great time, always an entertaining and educational podcast. And Carl has been on the show many, many times, will be on the show in the future, no doubt. I know you guys love yourself a bit of the Reverend. When I'm done talking to Harri, by the way, don't move a fucking muscle, because I am going to be checking out brand new tracks by the likes of Soulfly, Bliss of Flesh, Kreator, Afsky, Enthroned, Author and Punisher, Agnostic Front, Corrosion of Conformity. I'm answering your questions, all on the Weekly News Rant, all coming after my conversation with Harri. But for right now, though, sit back and welcome the man himself to the podcast, Harri Kuokkanen of Hooded Menace. So welcome to Into the Necrosphere. I'm going to assume that it is relatively dark still in Finland or where you are right now, unless you just happen to save all your music in kind of a dark dungeon at home.
Well, it's not even noon yet here in Finland, but it's a very cloudy and rainy day, so it's pretty dark outside right now.
Yeah. You've got quite a formidable music collection behind you. Just for anybody that's listening to this on Spotify and can't see it on YouTube, I mean, there must definitely be a couple of hundred LPs behind you, shitload of CDs as well. What is the total size of that collection, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't mind, but I don't know. I have no idea. I'm not that kind of a collector. I don't keep record of the records. I sometimes been thinking about maybe I should have a list just in case for the double copies. I rarely buy double copies, but when I do it on purpose. I think for the favorite bands and stuff, like different formats. But like
just in case you wear something out.
Oh yeah, because of the if I have like specific love for specific release, I want to have it like in different versions, how the layout works out on CD and tape and vinyl. But I usually don't do that, so I think I should avoid buying double copies. So maybe I should make a list. I don't know.
Yeah, well, in case you have somebody that comes around the house and decides to help themselves to a couple of things, so you want to be able to avoid that. Have you got a decent system to listen to all of that on?
Just a basic, like basic. I don't know. I think they're Pioneer right now. Like double tape deck, like old Sansui vinyl player and CD, like just normal stuff. And when something breaks down, I buy a new one. I'm not a hi-fi person. I don't like spend a lot of money to the system. I just want it to work, like not eating the tapes or anything like that. That's the main focus for me. So I don't want to break the stuff.
Yeah, I sometimes I think back to the old days of listening to music on cassettes and that just fucking horrible feeling that you got when your favorite album or something that you know is going to be incredibly difficult for you to get back or to find a friend who has it. When you start hearing you hear that very familiar sound, and anyone who's listened to music on cassette knows it. When you hear that sound and the tape starts getting chewed up, and you're like, "Oh fuck me, no."
Yeah, nowadays I've got a little bit wisdom, and I have like a expendable tape that I can like try first, because if now it's the time it starts chewing the tapes, I can like sacrifice one of those ones. So before I listen to any rare ones.
Yeah.
I usually try when I go with that selection of cassettes. I try with the expendable one.
Yeah. So in addition to Hooded Menace, you are also an incredibly busy man with a bunch of other stuff. And I mean, you must correct me on whatever I'm wrong on here, because you're not only you're not only the vocalist for Hooded Menace, you're also a multi-instrumentalist. So you play drums for Ride for Revenge, drums for Regier Sinister. You are the vocalist for Initiated. You do drums and vocals for Horse Latitudes, vocals for Hollow Woods, everything for Hail Conjurer, everything for Devil's Gateway. So you sleep between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. in the morning, and then the rest is devoted to music, or how does your average day work out for you?
Well, it's like I think it's a little bit seasonal thing, that not all the bands are like active the same way at the same time.
Yeah,
like only few bands, couple of bands maybe doing gigs at some season, some like period of time, and maybe some recordings and stuff like that. So it's kind of things usually said like nicely, like in between things. So I'm not doing everything all the time, like with every band. But music is for me the art form, and making art is like my life in a way that like what my being is about, how I am as a being. I think making music is the key to that. So that's the only way I know, like only way I know being. if that makes sense. So.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. I've often spoken about it on the show, and I've said, for me, when I started getting into metal music in particular, I remember hearing Thunderstruck for the first time, and it feels like you've found a missing limb. It's like it's something that should be there, that should always have been there, and you've just rediscovered it. And I still contend, I don't think that everybody experiences music that way. And there's definitely the tourists that are in the scene. unquestionably, I don't think that they experience music like that. I think they just go into metal because it's a nice, reasonably inviting and accepting scene to be in. You know, no matter how big of a freak of nature you are, you can, you know, you'll find people that'll be more than happy to welcome you in. But they also don't stick around for long. But people that are genuinely into the music, I think there's this unspoken thing where we all know exactly how we got into it. It's like a very, very personal thing, but it feels like it's an extension of you, and like it always should have, like it was always there.
Yeah, definitely. My experience, that kind of experience, was finding the Doors when I was like 12 years old. Like that, I was into, like, I listened to music before that, but I think finding the Doors was kind of like realizing the art of music, like properly, and that started like the whole journey for me. I didn't even get to the like metal, like, you know, extreme metal, until I was like 20s, 19 or 20 years old. I, like, my teen years, I was just listening to like psychedelic rock, progressive rock, like 60s, 70s stuff, and then it like started to listen to some hardcore punk, and I was like, after hardcore punk, I kind of found death metal and thrash, and eventually black metal and stuff like that.
What Doors song was it that you heard the first time?
I can't remember the song. It was like a best of cassette tape. I think there was like People Are Strange, that was like one of the first songs I remember, like, really hooked me. But it was the album Strange Days that I bought, like, secondhand copy of Strange Days, and that was kind of I got the album format and all that, and when the music's over in the end and all that stuff, like the whole like piece of art, not just like songs, but this is like the album sounds like that. And it was kind of a interesting thing, because I had the best of tape with the Jim Morrison on the cover, and there, of course, I knew about the movie. I got to know about the movie at that time, and but the Strange Days, because it has the album cover that didn't even have the band photos except like the tiny poster. Like, it was like it wasn't like a superstar, you know, like this Morrison sort of myth, like person myth or something like that, but it was like the band and the sound, more like the whole how it appeared as a CD. So I think that was in many ways a really like a big thing, like finding out that and listening to repeat, and kind of digging into the sound. And there's the song Horse Latitude as well, like just random noises with a poem. Like, okay, it's like for 12 years old, like that was like, yeah, this is the shit.
Yeah, you don't quite know what to make of it, but you know that it's something, you're listening to something very, very special.
Yeah, and it was like creepy, haunting atmospheres, like, and yeah, it wasn't like, it was rock music, but it wasn't like, you know, doo-be-doo-be-doo, but it was something darker and more deep. I think that was the thing. Yeah.
I was already quite, you know, I mean, well advanced in my metal journey when I discovered the Doors, and it was the first record that I got. Yeah. And I remember the song that left the biggest impression on me on that record, and then subsequently, of course, I saw Apocalypse Now, and you know that song comes to life in a different way. But I remember when I heard the end for the first time, it was such an incredible. I mean, the song in itself is such an incredible journey. It's such an emotional track. But there's also there's kind of a rebellion to it. There's you have all these dynamics in just the emotional components of the song. You know, there's rebellion, there's angst, there's emotion, there's sadness, there's a degree of rage in it as well. And that is that. It was that song to me. And whenever I think of the Doors, I always think of that song because I think that's such a perfect summary of everything that the band stood for and did artistically.
Yeah, I agree. I think both of the first albums are like beyond rating. They are like perfect records as such. And yeah, of course, I love like the first record, like from the back. But yeah, I think also like when thinking about those dark key songs of the Doors, like "Not to Touch the Earth" from the third album as well. It's like really twisted atmosphere and like pagan, or heathen like a vibe to it, like something sinister going on.
What was your read on Jim Morrison as a character? Because like depending on who you speak to, people think he's either a genius or just a complete drug crazed lunatic. But what was your view of him? As particularly as you've gotten older and you've I would assume you've read up a lot about him and seen documentaries and things like that. I mean, he was always to me like just one of the most fascinating people, and it was actually because of him that I checked out the Doors. As a matter of fact, the reason I checked out the Doors to begin with was because somebody told me that Glenn Danzig sounds like Jim Morrison, and I was like, okay, let me check this out. And that's how I was drawn to them.
Yeah, and when I first time heard Danzig, I think it was like some song from Lucy Fuge. That was like, holy shit, this guy's like Jim Morrison reincarnated. That's my first impression of Danzig, and like no surprise, Danzig is like this. Like I have two favorites of all time, these Danzig and the Doors. So no surprise.
Oh, dude. Well, we're gonna have to talk about Danzig in a bit as
well.
Oh
yeah. We can talk about it.
Oh yeah. No, for sure. But yeah, back to Jim Morrison. Like, what's your analysis of him? What's your take on him as a artist and as a character?
Well, he's I think the most important thing is that he's responsible, like so much of the music I love and the whole thing. I think without Jim Morrison, the band would have never been the same. Like when you hear the albums after he died, you gotta get the idea. There's like nothing like that. Like even though everyone like had their like contributed their part on the band, on the sound, but I think without him, the band would have never been like that. And for that reason only, I can appreciate him as an artist. And but I like I don't know, maybe like getting older, I care less and less about his persona. Like I of course I can. He seemed like an asshole at points when he got like being really alcoholic. It sounds like he must have been a really like hard person to be with, to do things with. But like doesn't matter to me right now. Like it's more than 50 years of, and it like doesn't touch anyone's lives anymore. But the music lives on. So I think that's the most important thing, and I think like getting like older, that kind of things, like people behind the music, like they get less and less interesting and important. It's more about the actual things they do and they like come up with. I think
I think as I my journey, my take on it as the way that it's evolved is, you are, when you're young, when you're a teenager, you're completely infatuated with a person. Then that grows to a degree of indifference. And then as I've gotten older, I think what I've started to see is you start to appreciate them for what they were in terms of the energy that they brought to the band. Like if we take a different example, I've often said, I don't think that obviously Guns N' Roses are together again now. They're playing shows, but I don't personally think that unless you stick those, the original 5 guys in a room and there's drugs and hookers and all sorts of craziness around them, you will never, ever, ever again be able to recreate that energy. There's just certain bands and certain personalities, certain musicians that your point about the Doors, I think, was absolutely correct as well. For whatever Jim Morrison was, whether he was pleasant to be around, whether he was an asshole, whether he was a complete and utter psycho, the energy he brought to the studio and the energy that he brought into the band dynamic is what helped create those songs. And you could never, there's nothing that you could ever do. You could find somebody that sounds exactly like him. It won't matter. You'll never be able to recreate that, because you'll never be able to recreate that atmosphere and that dynamic in the studio again.
Yeah, and given how influential they are, like for me and all the like people after them, it's like it's beyond even that band. It's like something like, yeah, I think it's something more and should be appreciated as such.
Yeah. I mean, they also come from a period of time that I've found personally, I've always been incredibly interested in. I think like late 60s, early 70s was just such a wild time in the world. You had Vietnam, you had the Manson family. I mean, it seemed like just total and utter carnage and chaos. But it's just, as I said, there's so many interesting personalities, so many things artistically were happening at that time that were so interesting, that I think was an outflow of the chaos that was happening, at a global level. And in some ways, I mean, I feel like nowadays a lot of the very aggressive music, the very dark music we see is coming from a similar place. The world's a very violent place, the world's a very dark place, and so therefore the art is going to reflect accordingly. But there was something, just from a pure voyeuristic, artistic perspective, there was something incredibly special and interesting about the late 60s and early 70s.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So now we have to talk about Danzig, though. So you discovered the Doors. How old were you when you discovered Danzig?
It was, I think it was like, I think it was 17 years old. Like, I had a friend who had this bootleg CD of all the Misfits 7-inch like stuff, like from like the real Misfits era, that is Danzig era. And that blew like my mind away. And right after that, like I heard that the guy has a metal band, and then I heard like a friend of mine had burned a CD with like songs from the first 4 albums plus something from the 7th, and that was just like released at that time, and that was like, yeah, I was hooked, like, because I like never ever heard anyone sounding like Jim Morrison or having the same kind of like they both have this kind of older like crooning sound, but they took that sound to the music they made, like the Doors making this twisted, like really theatrical rock music, and then Danzig having this blues rock stuff. So it was like the perfect elements colliding. So yeah, I was hooked at that time, and ever since I've like felt that those two bands are like the most important for me personally, and it's like I cannot decide like which one is important anymore.
Which one you like the most? My discovery of Danzig was kind of, I remember reading a review of How the Gods Kill in a copy of Thrasher magazine, and there was just something about the way they described the album in that review that I was like, I have to hear what this sounds like, just out of curiosity more than anything else. But there was just something where, and a lot of the music I discovered was like that, where, I had to go through catalogs and stuff, and then, I'd see Impaled Nazarene, or I would see Samael, or I'd see something, and it was just something that told me, check out, buy the CD, you're going to like it. So, and this wasn't even reviews, it was just the descriptions of it. It was the same with Danzig. I remember getting How the Gods Kill, and I must have listened to it the first day I had it, 5-6 times back to back, because it was just so different to any single thing that I'd heard up to that point. It was you sort of had that Doors influence, you had the blues rock influence, you had a bit of metal, but it was, whatever there was, it was just packaged in something that was completely and utterly unique, fronted by this guy that just sounded mesmerizing. And then I got like Danzig 1, Danzig 2, then I got Danzig 4. And I have to say, and I'm curious on your views on this, but I was on board for Black Acid Devil. I was definitely on board for Satan's Child. To me, Satan's Child is one of the most criminally overlooked Danzig albums ever. I love Illuciferi. I don't really think, with the exception of that Skeletons cover record that he did, I don't personally think there is actually a Danzig record that I would consider to be bad. Like, this is just garbage.
Oh yeah. There, even on that record, there are many tracks that are like awesome. Like Action Woman, when Danzig pounds the drums himself, he like really primitive pounding and really powerful like punk rock stuff going on. Yeah, and like Crying in the Rain, the Closer, like just perfect. I think. Yeah. Like I said, I was like, when I found out the band, that was already time of the Illuciferi. So like I started like going back, and sadly at that time there was this it was almost like a folklore, like how Danzig got bad after the fourth album. So I kind of and they weren't around like easily. None of my friends had like Black Acid Devil or Satan's Child. I only Satan's Child copy I had. Like a friend of mine had a really bad sounding Picture LP that was like really like hissy sounding, and that's it was like that, like it sounds this shit, It did, because of the actual record sounded like all that stuff because of the picture. LP. So I kind of stuck with the first four and then Illuciferi, but like after that, like years going by, and I like had to dig deeper into the like forbidden zone, and I was amazed when I first, at that time, Black Acid Devil, and it was like, holy shit, this is amazing. It's like of course it's over the top, like when you start with a seventh house song that all distorted vocals, it's like sounds nothing like the previous ones. It's like I think it's almost like a middle finger, like Danzig having like, it's like a test for the audience, the first song, because after that it gets a little bit like back to the, for example, the vocal effects are not that
they're not as pronounced anymore.
Yeah, and there's like, for example, the song Ashes, like, which is really like one of his best vocal performances. Like how
I would agree with that.
How clean and how emotional he sounds. So that was kind of a gem that like finding and like I think it's not even like underrated. It's like a forbidden and forgotten gem that like only it should be only for the true enthusiasts.
For I was about to say the true enthusiast. So Danzig 5, like Black Acid Devil, came to me by way of MTV Headbangers Ball, and I remember seeing the first music video that they did for Sacrifice, and I was like, oh, holy shit, that's Tommy Victor. And I was a big fan of Prong. Didn't really know anybody at the time who enjoyed Prong, but I loved Prong, and I loved Tommy Victor's guitar playing. And so when I saw the music video for Sacrifice, I was like, this is different, but man, there's just something that's fucking just awesome about this. Like the simplicity of the song with his brilliant vocal performance laying over that. It just worked for me. The album itself took me a little bit of time to get into, because obviously it's very different to Sacrifice, but there's just a point in time where songs like Hint of Her Blood and Serpentia just clicked for me, and I was like, I get what he's trying to do here. This music sounds like, or this album sounds to me like the soundtrack that you would hear on a movie like 8mm, where some sort of, sex-crazed psycho is listening to the shit while he's cutting up bodies. That it was in a weird way. given that he has always sung about horror themes, or at least certainly did so in in Misfits. To me, this was in a bizarre kind of way. This was almost a return to his horror roots, which obviously had given way to the occult and more fantastical ideas with Samhain and with Danzig. But this to me was very much a return to his horror roots, Black Acid Devil.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the lost Samhain album even.
Yeah, easily.
It could have been the next Samhain album if the band didn't change in the Danzig and the blues stuff, but went like further on that kind of a primitive rhythms and like this really dark, horror-y stuff. But when you said "Hint of Her Blood," I think that's one of my favorite songs on the album because I kind of think that one has also the Jim Morrison vibe, but it sounds like the Stooges song with Jim Morrison fronting, and then this really harsh production on it. So it's kind of a repeative Stooges rhythms and this really nice bluesy vocal. So I think it's a perfect example how he has been able to combine those really primordial rock genres and the ideas of rock and roll music together to make it unique.
That song also has a great dynamic to it, where it builds up slowly, and then eventually the drums kick in, and it's there's this really nice, very simplistic but very pronounced drum fill that gets the drums going properly, and then it's almost like the song sort of leads into its crescendo. But I never understood why people hated it, and then by the time 666 Satan's Child came out, I mean, I was all fucking fully on board with that record. I remember hearing Five Finger Crawl and just going, holy Jesus, this is excellent. Lilin, the first time I ever saw Danzig play live, they did Lilin, they did Unspeakable. I then saw them later on again with Johnny Kelly on drums doing Unspeakable, and I was like, that song just comes, when you hear Johnny Kelly playing drums on that and them doing it live, it just comes completely alive. Because again, it's such a simplistic, such a masculine, testosterone fueled riff, and just with these awesome vocals over. Everybody complained about the sort of whispering vocal he was doing on Satan's Child, but I loved it. I was like, this sounds so fucking cool. He sounds so sinister, but so much like himself at the same time. That whole record to me, top to bottom, is brilliant. There's not a single song on that record I don't love.
Yeah, there are lots of great ones, and I think Cold Eternal is my favorite on that one. Like a really creepy, haunting, sad song. I think that's he's really good at that kind of making sad and sinister at the same time. And I love that for the production when there comes in the distorted guitars, something I many times wanted to just steal for something. some of my own songs, like that particular sound combined with a really melodic singing.
Well, you're absolutely right in that he does sinister and sad at the same time really, really well. But what's great, and Cold Eternal is a superb example of that, he does it without it ever sounding contrived. It never sounds like it's an act. Like that bit on Cold Eternal where the lyric is something, and I might be wrong on this, but the lyric is "You were the saddest one," and it's like he's got that Elvis thing going there, but it just hits so perfectly because the timing, the delivery, the way that he wrote the lyric, it's just fucking absolutely sensational. But I mean, again, that album to me, Unspeakable, is incredible. Satan's Child, again, they played that a couple of times on the shows that I saw him. Into the Mouth of Abandonment, genius. 13, absolute genius. Lilin, fucking brilliant. I mean, yeah, like I said, top to bottom, fantastic. And it's been the same for me with everything. I mean, even again, an underloved album, Death Red Sabbath. You were talking earlier about his drumming. He drums on, I think it's the song Black Candy. And it's such it's just typical to his personality. It's such an offbeat way of drumming. It's a weird way of using, the double bass, but the song just works for me. It is just That's just superb. And again, one of, I think, his later career best vocal performances is on that track.
Yeah, I think, I love all the albums as well, and it, like I think Circle of Snakes is kind of I think that's a counter, like the pairing for Satan's Child for me. It's kind of, they got a sort of the same vibe going on, but the production is really different. Where like on Satan's Child, there's this more warmer and like a fuzzier, like fuller production. And on Circle of Snakes, it's more like a brutally violent sort of production. Everything's like the guitar riffs are just like fist on your forehead. But then Death or Sabbath goes. I think that nicely goes back to the even like the atmosphere of the first albums, like the bluesy rock stuff. And and the latest full length of his, Black Laden Crown, I think that's
I think there's some killer
amazing
songs on that album.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I think
like
there's some absolutely brilliant songs on that.
Yeah, the Closer, Pull the Sun. That's one of his favorite, like best tracks of all time, I think. It's like
On Circle of Snakes, I had the opportunity to interview him once, and the song that I loved most on that record was Netherbound, and I asked him specifically, like, you know, what is that song about? And he had been very conversational, very talkative during the discussion, and he stayed quiet for a few seconds, and then he said, "It's about a way of life." And that's just how he wrapped it up. And that was like an answer that stuck with me after the interview. And I was like, I know exactly where he's coming from with that. And again, if you look at the way he has lived his life, I mean, he really is a man who moves to the beat of his own drum, like without exception. You know, whether it's Misfits, Samhain, Danzig. I'm assuming you got into the Samhain stuff as well.
Oh yeah. That was the last one I got into, and at first when I had the back, like I already knew the Misfits, I knew knew Danzig. It was kind of it felt like really weird. Like it had the familiar aspects of both bands, but still something that was, I couldn't put finger on what was that. It was a little bit challenging for me at first. But when it really clicked, I think I would say that it's his best band. Like the discography
with that.
Is like it's something that has everything he had in him. Like, and of course, I loved how Danzig like kept on like getting stuff from the fountain, but I think Samhain was kind of that was the fountain of it all, and it had all the things he had put together in such a unique way. It's like there's no band like Samhain, never been, never will. It's like you can. I don't even know if there are like really true copycats of that band, because it's such like weird, and everything, be the chords, be the melodics, be the rhythms he created, is something like, it's goth and horror punk, and it's like whatever that has like that's a perfect music for me.
I was going to ask you, I mean, as a drummer yourself, what's your thoughts on London May and Steve Zing's drumming? Because Steve Zing, as an example, like if you listen to the drumming on The Howl, I would say the All Murder, All Guts, All Fun, The Shift, it was kind of like heavy metal, punk, post-punk, goth, like everything all just tossed into one, but it also sounded very, very primal at the same time. It almost, in a weird way, to me, has always sounded, and especially on Initium, Steve Zing's drumming, it's always almost sounded slightly unrehearsed to me. It's like he just got behind the drum kit. It's like, let's go, and because of that, it has this spontaneity to it that I just think adds to the songs so perfectly.
Yeah, I love both albums. Drumming. I think I may have been some like interview of Eerie Vaughan or something when he described about like London May playing drums, and I think he said that it was Glenn, like just like being a what is the in the classical music? What's this?
Conductor.
Conductor, yeah, like a conductor. Like every time there should be like an accent of a symbol, Glenn pointing the rhythms there, and so it was kind of a. I've always felt, and especially after hearing that particular interview, that it's kind of a Glenn on drums, but he just had this guy to do it, like make his will. But yeah, I think on Initium maybe that's more like it's more punky, like the punk, more like sounds more like the Misfits Step 2, but November Coming Fire, I think that's when the band comes like fully alive, like there's still the punk, but it goes way beyond that. Like with the rhythms, it's like this gothic post-punk stuff going on, and I think that's maybe even my favorite record of all time. Like if I had to pick one, an album that kind of has it all, and like if I had to listen to one album my whole life, that would be.
Well, you have so much variety on that album as well. I mean, you've got To Walk the Night, you've got November's Fire, you've got Mother of Mercy, In My Grip. But yeah, to me, November's Fire and To Walk the Night, those two songs in particular, just, I mean, it's transcendent music. Like it's one of those rare things that I suspect you could play to just about everybody, and they'll find something in that they like.
Yeah, I think it should be celebrated more, but at the same time I still like also
it's great that it's not celebrated more.
Yeah, it's like I think there will be time that it will be appreciated like even more, like some sort of a key element to the many styles of music that influenced. I also claim that it influenced more music than we could even like realize nowadays. It's in subconscious ways, like underground musicians have been like getting like being aware or unaware of the fact that they've been listening to that and getting influences.
Well, I mean, how many metal bands, and I don't give a shit whether you're the most extreme, brutal black metal band, death metal band, but how many metal bands were influenced by Metallica? And there's absolutely no question that Metallica were influenced by Misfits and Samhain. I knew about Misfits and Samhain way back from seeing James wear the T-shirts. So, just from that perspective, you are, by extension, you have been influenced by them.
Yeah. And I think Cliff Burton as well, especially was the one who was like telling everyone about Danzig's music.
So when we come to we've been talking for nearly 40 minutes, and we haven't spoken about Hooded Menace at all. But let me tell you that I had the fucking worst case of COVID during the Tritonus Bell, and for whatever reason, it was the only album I could bring myself to listen to while I was like that. While I was in my convalescent state, and afterwards I was like, you know what, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to. I really love the album, but I don't ever think I'm going to be able to listen to Hooded Menace ever again. Then I heard the first single of Lachrymose Monuments of Obscuration. I was like, wow, there's kind of an openness to this album and an expansiveness that I don't think it definitely wasn't on the Tritonus Bell. I mean, it's an album that just seems to sort of reach into so many different areas and so many different directions, all at the same time, but it just works exceptionally well. What are your feelings about the record? I know you guys have been sitting on this for about a year now. You've probably had an opportunity to hear it back quite a bit, but how do you feel about the record? How do you feel about its place in the Hooded Menace discography?
Well, yeah, I think with the Tritonus Bell, like that was one shifting point of the band. Not like completely changing the sound of the band, but like introducing many elements that weren't there before. And I think now with new one, Lachrymose Monuments of Obscuration, I think the things that were like introduced in the Triton spell now get to be there, like up front, and we like kind of we got further with those kind of things. So now it's I don't say that Triton spell is compromised in any way. It's nothing like that, but it was kind of giving a new direction, and this new album is like getting the most of it right now. So like I think it has most variety within a Hooded Menace album to date. So this one has more different kinds of stuff in one album, and productional like things, and even like vocally, I think they're like this is my third album with Hooded Menace, so so it's not the whole discography, but of these three, I think now this is the more variation to it, and like had to think about more how to execute vocals, because it would have not, like Lasse wanted me to have vocals on Hooded Menace in the first place because he felt that songwriting of his didn't like fit with his style of vocals. But now with this album, I think we reached the point that even my like previous like Ossuarium Silhouettes and Hollow style of vocals would not have fit all the songs. So we had to get more things going on, and like so I think now it's more on plate, but I think it's a way it should be.
I mean, you're a guy that obviously has a very broad spectrum of musical tastes, you know, beyond the band. We've just spoken about two of them now. Is that expansion in the sound of Hooded Menace, does that excite you as a singer, because it gives you a lot more scope and a lot more opportunity to try different things, to test yourself as a vocalist, and maybe even bring in some of the influences that sit outside of what you were doing when you first joined Hooded Menace?
Yeah, I think of course it's more inspirational. It's not just like doing the same thing all the time, and so I was definitely more excited like doing this. Of course, especially because it was more challenging to me this time. Like challenging, not the way that I felt I couldn't do it, but more like I had to have a challenge to make the best out of it. So it was, I think more. I like it more this way.
Do you think he's getting to a point now where he's starting to write? You know, he's starting to write his music with you as the vocalist in mind. Because it sounds like there was a bit of a shift that occurred, you know, certainly over the last two records, where he was still writing in a certain way, knew that he wasn't the person to fit it, had you, but maybe wasn't using you as a tool to the extent that, you know, he potentially has the ability to.
In some way, I think yes, and he has even said that, like when he's because when Lasse writes music, he also writes all the vocal arrangements, like before even the lyrics. So he knows like what he wants from the vocals, and he even said himself, like when he's been sending like the examples of the vocal arrangements, like ignore the sound, because he's like I'm not gonna, like I wouldn't even sing that like his voice. So he's kind of he knows my abilities, so he's kind of he can explore songs more in that way. That I think of course he doesn't write songs like just the vocal performance in mind, but I think that gives him more room to explore the things that he would not have done before. And and because that's the kind of a thing that is these kind of styles inspire him right now. I think that's a good thing. So
and the thing is, I would imagine as a as a creator and a musician, it is more fun to know that you have, tools at your disposal that can help you achieve a vision that you're not going to be able to achieve yourself. You've got better, sharper tools in the toolbox, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, definitely.
What was how did you and he meet? Because you joined the band in 2016. Did he reach out to you?
We knew each other some years before that. When Horse Latitudes, the band you mentioned earlier, we had released the first album of ours, and he bought it and he liked it. And after that, he suggested a Hooded Menace Horse Latitudes split, and we did a split. I think it was 2012. We did that split album to Dementia Records, and after that, Horse Latitudes was signed for Dementia for the couple of albums. But after that particular split album, we not in a very active contact with each other, but sometimes being in some contact with each other. And it was 2016 when he asked if I would he had heard Horse Latitude's third album, and there were more of this kind of rough death metal vocals on it compared to the other ones, which were more trad doom clean vocals. And he liked the sound, and he asked if I could join the band, not only as a live vocalist, as it used to be that he was doing the records and other guy live, but he wanted to have the same one doing both, and he liked the sound, so he asked. And I joined for the US West Coast tour 2016, and after that we recorded the album. There was one split I recorded before that, was with the band called Algoma, with one song. Yeah.
How surprised were you when he popped the question about you joining the band?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, because that was kind of a pretty straightforward thing to do. Just ask, hey dude, want to join? And it was at that time the band was active rehearsing in Joensuu, which is totally other side of Finland, 6 hours by train, sort of far away. So it was I was supposed to prepare for the tour, so I had to do just only 2 rehearsal trips, weekends there, and just rehearse myself. So it was more. I was more not that much surprised of the suggestion itself, but more wondering whether it would work because of the such long distance thing. But it did, and eventually he and one of the other guys moved to Helsinki. The other guy was in Helsinki, and Lasse started going to Helsinki for rehearsals when we changed the live lineup. So when we were most active live for a few years, it was we rehearsed in Helsinki, so that worked pretty well. But when we stopped doing that, the focus, the things moved back to Joensuu, and now it's just remote work.
Yeah. And it has been Lasse's decision for the band not to play live, correct?
Yes. Yeah,
what is it about playing live that you think he doesn't like?
He just doesn't like. I think he never enjoyed playing live as such. He can enjoy the activities around it, but not the actual playing, not the traveling. Right? But I think it's mostly he doesn't be up front. He doesn't enjoy being out there, and because also I think it's partly because he's such a perfectionist. So he doesn't enjoy the life being a little bit always something out of control or tune or something like that. So he would enjoy if it was the perfect execution, but at the same time it's So I think it's many things. He doesn't be out there up front. He doesn't like sit in the airports and in the buses and all that stuff together, and it's I think he realized like that he just wants to create music. He just wants to make good songs with the top-notch production, not like any activities beyond that are uninteresting for him. So.
I do think a lot of people overlook the fact that, especially people that aren't in bands, overlook how much of a pain it can be to tour and to play live, especially if you're not in a bigger band. And even if you are in a bigger band and you've ascended to the point of, being able to tour in a nightliner and stuff like that, it's still not particularly comfortable. So when you get to your, mid 30s or, your 40s and stuff like that, unless you're a road dog for life, I think there's a thrill to being on stage, but even that thrill wears off eventually. And I think I can completely see where somebody like he comes from, where he goes, this just isn't fucking worth it.
Yeah.
How do you feel about playing live?
I most of the times I enjoy it. And it's different with different bands. Like with Hood and Menace, it was always because I was just a sort of a hired gun sort of thing. So it was in a way most fun band to do because I just execute my part. I do it well and get to do the heavy metal vocalist stuff. It's really different, for example, for the Hail Conjurer, where everything is my music, everything is in my control because I do the live just by myself, and it's really more. That's more like a turned inwards thing, but whereas this is more just being there with the audience and enjoying the songs. So it's a really different. But yeah, I think it's. I mostly I can say I like it, or at least I'm comfortable with it.
Which of your bands do you play live with at the moment?
At the moment, Hail Conjurer, both the black metal solo stuff, but also the noise collaboration with Absolute Key. We've been doing pretty constantly. We had some gigs this year with the band called Pussies. That's me and Albert Witchfinder and a couple of other guys doing this nasty punk rock stuff. And Devil's Gateway, we at first I was playing all the instruments with our vocalist Hanna, but now we have the full lineup, so we start doing gigs this April. And Hollow Woods, we have one gig in a year or two. It's not like a live mostly, but we do some live shows every now and then. And let me think. At least those ones come in mind that been playing last year or something.
And you've had a busy you've had a busy time of it with your own bands too, because Hail Conjurer brought out Order of Disgrace. You put that out in February, and then Devil's Gateway, you put out Shreds of Life in February as well. So a lot going on for you musically outside of Hooded Menace.
Yeah, and mostly everything else, because Hooded Menace is Lasse started writing those songs 2022 already, and it's been constant working with songs ever since. And of course we've been able to follow the process. He's been introducing the ideas and how the songs evolve and stuff. But it was the most. It's just the last year, a year ago, it was this couple of months of vocal sessions here and there. That was mostly the work for Hooded Menace, and now this year has been mostly this promotional stuff.
Out of interest, how do you find the promotional side of the band?
Necessary evil sort of thing. It's it's okay, and because for example, this kind of stuff, I'm okay with doing this live thing, so I can do this. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's not because the other bands I'm I do, they're more underground, in a clandestine in a way. So I don't have to do this too often with any other band. So I kind of think this is part of the game when doing this kind of music for the bigger label. So yeah,
it's also an opportunity for you to I mean, at least in this platform, it's an opportunity for you to elevate stuff like Hail Conjurer as well.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Well, sure. I usually think that, like, I don't bring them too much, because I think if someone likes Hooded Menace, they might not like Hail Conjurer at all, because I kind of realize they're so pretty different sorts of animals. So I kind of I could promote like all the bands, but I don't. I think I don't want to underestimate the people listening. They just don't follow anything you say. But of course, yeah, I think for the bands, the other bands right now, I think Devil's Gateway might scratch the itch, that the same itch than like some Hooded Menace stuff, like slower death metal sound. Even though Devil's Gateway is more like death crust stuff, but I think that's the band that might work the best for like a random Hooded Menace listener.
Yeah, I think on this podcast you'll find it'll definitely lean more towards the black metal side of things. So Hail Conjurer is something I'm sure people are going to dig, and as you can tell from my hoodie, I'm generally speaking a very big fan of the Finnish scene. Period. I was talking to you earlier about Jerry from Rauta. He said the fucking funniest thing to me once about, we were talking about the Finnish black metal scene and how, so many people on Reddit and, the typical fucking idiots in the US and the UK complain about Finnish black metal and say it's all sketch. And he says to me in the I don't know how, if you know him, but he says it in that kind of very stoic accent of his. He's like, well, the thing that people need to understand about the Finnish black metal scene, we don't give a fuck. And when in that quote to me is like exactly why I love the Finnish black metal scene so much.
Yeah. Jerry's he's a cool guy.
Yeah.
He also did like pretty lengthy Hail Conjurer interview on his channel once, 3 years ago, I think.
Yeah. Well, I know we're at time, but I think we're going to have to do us a Hail Conjurer interview at some point as well. But I want to say thank you so much for your time, my man. Congratulations on Hooded Menace, but we'll certainly be promoting the other bands as well. And thank you very much for coming on the show. It was a fucking blast. It's I love when you never know what to expect from a conversation, and then all of a sudden I was looking at the clock. I'm like, we've been spending 40 minutes talking about Samhain and Danzig and the Doors. It's that's kind of what the unpredictability of it is what makes these kinds of episodes really fun.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I enjoyed this one as well.
Awesome. Cheers, brother. Speak to you soon. Hopefully catch you at some point down the road.
Yeah. Cheers.
Hooded Menace coming your way with a track off their brand new album, due for release on October the 3rd through Season of Mist. The album, just in case you went and forgot the title, Lachrymose Monuments of Obscuration. It is absolutely fucking fantastic. And I want to say a massive thank you to Harri for his time. This was a early Sunday morning conversation, which is why I may have looked a little bleary-eyed. But let me tell you, it was one of those where you end up discovering that you have things in common with a guest that you weren't expecting, and the conversation just kind of takes on a life of its own from there. So I had a blast talking to him, and I hope you guys enjoyed that one as much as I did recording it. Make sure you check out that Hooded Menace album when it gets released. At the point that I am dropping this episode, we're about 2 to 3 days away, so definitely something that you need to listen to. Certainly something that I think is going to be a contender for that top 30 of 2025. Another one that might be doing the rounds on that list is one of Harri's other projects. I mentioned it at the beginning of the podcast. He is involved in several bands, but Hail Conjurer is a black metal project that just put out a new album this year called Order of Disgrace on Crypt of the Wizard. I think it is absolutely brilliant. So before we do anything else, before we get to the weekly news rant, I wanted to make sure you guys hear what this sounds like, just in case it's flown under your radar. This is a song called Transference. Hail Conjurer, featuring my guest this week, Harri Kuokkanen, also of Hooded Menace fame, that is taken from the album Order of Disgrace that was released on February the 28th by Crypt of the Wizard. You heard a song called Transference. The Hooded Menace, as well as the Hail Conjurer bandcamps, will be in the description to the podcast, so head over there, show maximum love and support however far your finances carry you. Make sure you let them know who it was who sent you, and if all goes to plan, at some point Harri Kuokkanen will be back on this podcast. We might refrain from talking too much about Danzig at that point, but that was, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I always love talking about Danzig, and I particularly love talking about Samhain. If you stick around until after the news rant, I might even play us out with a bit of Samhain this week. So and by the way, if you don't like Samhain, I probably have, well, I have instantly halved my level of respect for your taste in music. Right now, my friends, if you're the kind of sniveling, spindly dork who claims up to 7 different pieces of gym equipment every single day so that you can superset, and then you have the fucking gall to get stroppy and cheeky with somebody who uses one of those bits of equipment and wasn't somehow able to smell that you've claimed it, well, then I guess it's time for you to hit the bricks, because this is my weekly news rant.
Round about for judgment. And hang them where the world can see.
All right, my friends, the weekly odyssey begins as always on metalstorm.net, and the first headline grabbing my attention is that Stryper have a Christmas album on the way. We are, however, not going to spend any time on their music or on their message, but we are going to check out the new Kreator single. It says here, Kreator have released the music video for their brand new song, Seven Serpents. It is the first single from their upcoming 16th studio album, Crushers of the World. And that is Crushers spelt with a K, so that you know that whilst they may be verging on eligibility for an old age pensioner's bus pass, the Kreator guys are still plenty hip and plenty cool. The new album is going to be out on January the 16th, 2026 via Nuclear Blast Records. Let's hear what Seven Serpents sounds like. All right, I'll pause there. If I had to be positive about the song or say anything positive about the song, It would be that at the very least, it is nowhere near as horrifically atrocious as the complete and utter fucking wretch-inducing turd that was Hate Uber Alles, their 15th album released back in 2022. I mean, that really was, when I think about the so-called big four of German thrash metal, and I think of everything that they've put out collectively over the course of the last 2 decades, I think that Hate Uber Alles is easily the worst of anything that any of those bands have put out. I mean, Destruction, even if Schmier is having an absolutely horrific day, would never, ever release a record that terrible. Equally, I will concede, before I say anything further about the song itself, that, you know, for me, Kreator is basically endless pain, pleasure to kill, terrible certainty, extreme aggression. I like some songs off Coma of Souls, and I think that Violent Revolution, or everything up to Violent Revolution, has its moments. You know, again, one of those bands that on those records, when they're on, they're really on. There's a bunch of filler in there as well. But really, beyond Violent Revolution, there's not a lot else that I find particularly exciting or particularly interesting about what Kreator were doing. And this song, unfortunately, is no exception. In the comments, somebody had mentioned that it reminded them of Children of Bodom and Norther. In fact, somebody said it's one keyboard solo away from Children of Bodom and Norther. I tend to agree. I don't really know what's missing from Kreator's music at the moment, because it's clear when you listen to the song. I was trying to kind of put myself in their shoes, writing this, recording this. Like, you can hear a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of passion for the material, even though the production, the mix is very anodized. You can still hear that it's guys that are up for it, that are, you know, there to turn in the best music that they possibly can. But there's just something that's missing. It's nowhere near as cringe-inducing as Hate Uber Alles, but it just lacks that spark that made Kreator the influential band that they are. I mean, anybody who's anybody from a certain generation. And you can look at Cannibal Corpse, you can look at Deicide, you can look at Morbid Angel. And there's so many bands that you can reference, and guarantee you will find an interview with them where they talk about their influences. And amongst those influences will be Kreator, and in particular, Endless Pain and Pleasure to Kill. And now, I mean, I don't think the Kreator are influencing anybody anymore. I mean, it's clear that they're being influenced, but the days of them providing any sort of creative leadership in the scene, those are fucking long gone. So it's not the worst thing that I've heard, certainly not by Kreator's standards, but it's definitely not something that I'm going to pay any attention to when it comes out. So I think there are some Kreator fans that, you know, probably got a little jiggly and moist when they heard that song. I'm definitely not one of those people. That's for goddamn sure. Now, moving swiftly along, Blood Red Throne have announced and detailed a new long player that's probably coming out, or actually coming out on December the 5th, 2025. I was about to say a New Year's release, but a lot of bands seem to be announcing material for the latter half of the year, and particularly November and December. So I hope that doesn't derail Decibel's plans to put out their best of on October the 1st. Their best of 2025 list on October the 1st, but you know, we shall see. There's also, well, there's no single with Blood Red Throne, so we'll move on to a article that actually contains a new single, and that is an announcement that Soulfly are delivering a new single. It says here to promote their forthcoming studio release, Chama. That's due out on October the 24th. Soulfly offer in listening the second single, Nihilist, and that features a guest performance by the Nails frontman Todd Jones. Now, again, Soulfly are not a band that I have enjoyed or listened to any great length of time since Dark Ages that came out in 2005. I suspect if I were to go back to Dark Ages today, I would probably want to turn it off instantly as well. But like I've said before, when it comes to Max Cavalera, not only based off the strength of his early work, which, you know, that is absolute landmark material. You talk about influence. I mean, again, who wasn't influenced by Bestial Devastation or Morbid Visions or Schizophrenia or Beneath the Remains? Those Cavalera re-recordings, that in my mind has absolved him from any further accountability for putting out poor music. He can do whatever he wants after those re-recordings. He can get in the studio with Rihanna and record a cover of Rude Boy, and I'll go with God, Max. You still remain an absolute legend in my mind. Now, but that all of that bullshitting aside, we'll give the song a listen. I don't have particularly high hopes, but I mean, I do like me Nails and I do like Todd Jones, so who knows? Maybe old Max will surprise us. All right, this one is short but sweet, so we're going to stop it at around the halfway mark. Of note about this track, by the way, is that we've got Zion Cavalera, one of Max's progeny. He's been the drummer for Soulfly since 2013, as I understand it, but he's playing drums there. And then we also have Igor Cavalera Jr., otherwise known as Igor Amadeus Cavalera Jr. He, of course, is in Go Ahead and Die, another project with Max Cavalera. He plays bass on this. So a family affair, a song that I think in the best case scenario, if I'm in a fantastic mood, I would say that this would kind of scrape that category of comfort food metal. Metal that you can play in the background. I'm not going to completely and utterly hate it, but I'm never going to get overly excited about it. So that's sort of where I land on it. It's not absolutely terrible, but it's not something that I'm going to remember beyond recording the news rant, quite frankly. Somebody asked me the other day how I remember everything that I listen to that I think is top notch, or even beyond top notch. And I can tell you now, the way that I manage my music intake is I actually use Google Sheets, and I have a running working spreadsheet that starts at the beginning of the year, and that has everything that I list as a contender, and then I start to gradually distill that down into my top 30 of that particular year. And that's what I've done. I've actually done that since the podcast started, and I was still doing top 20s, but obviously that's expanded now to top 30. I also have a playlist on Spotify that I maintain. So anything new that comes out that I like, I just dump into that playlist straight away. And so that I'm reminded of it enough to be able to go back and listen to it. That spreadsheet for 2025 started to come along very nicely. There was a period of time this year where I felt like, we were seeing a bit of a drop off in quality, but that has not happened as we've moved towards the second half of the year, and particularly over the course of the next couple of months, there are some absolute fucking bangers that have been released, are due to be released. This new Hooded Menace album that Harri and I were talking about, fucking masterpiece. On top of that, still to come, you've got the new Bluthaus Nord. Cannot wait for that. I saw that Disylum or Disylum, or however you pronounce their name, they've got a new record coming out. It actually brings me to a question that was asked, and I just want to double check that I have the gentleman's name to hand so that I can credit him, and more importantly, so that I can pronounce it correctly. And I'm going to apologize because he always shares stuff. He's a big fan of Into the Necrosphere, a worthy member of the Legion. But Baba Kianak Honsari, he's asked me to give a list of my top underground black metal bands. Now, top 10 underground black metal bands. I don't really know how you define underground. And that's not just a question I directed him. It's just a general question. Like, underground to me, really in the grand scheme of things, is basically anything that's not Watain or Behemoth, or super popular, stuff that the average person, if you walked up to them, there's a better than 50% chance they would know who they are. If that's how you define underground, then the vast majority of what we listen to on this podcast and we celebrate on Into the Necrosphere is underground. If we want to take it a step further and say underground by our measure would be stuff that maybe not everybody that listens to Into the Necrosphere would necessarily know, right off the top of the bat, bands that are not massively featured on either festival bills, the preserve of a select few. Probably if you go onto their Spotify, there's maybe 500 to 600 listeners per month on there. Let's use that as the definition for underground. And with that in mind, here's 10 bands that you definitely should be listening to, or definitely should have checked out by now. They've, of course, all been featured on Into the Necrosphere. So, if you've been sleeping on them, you only have yourself to blame. So in no particular order, and I'll list their names on the screen so that, if you want to write them down, you can do so. But I would have Engangshammer. I mentioned Disylum. Malapest, Lictaren, Drugoth, I would definitely regard as underground black metal, and I fucking love Drugoth, as you should know. Nexion out of Iceland, Altari, fucking genius band. Spire, Ekrom, and Slidier. Slidier, I would say, is a band that genuinely carry the torch for the black metal underground, and I fucking love them. Absolutely love them. So there you go. That's 10 underground black metal bands. Broadly speaking, if I had to say, as a little bonus for you guys, what are my favorite 10 black metal bands of the day? And I go with what I am listening to most at the moment. Black metal wise, again, in no particular order, it would be Mayhem, Marduk, Funeral Mist, Behexen, Horner, Ecclese, Ruim, Gehenna, Darkthrone, Bathory. Definitely the band that I've listened to most, the black metal band I've listened to most this year has been Behexen. And I would say if we had to go with a number 11 with a honorable mention, probably Darvasa. So it's been a very Scandinavian and Finnish inspired year. This, and honestly, I think it's probably reflected in the short list for my top 30 of 2025. By the way, one thing that I can confirm is I will soon, and when I say soon, probably in the next month or so, be launching intothenecrosphere.com. So going to be launching a website for the podcast where we will have not only embedded players for this show, for all the horsemen. I'll have, announcements about guests that are coming up. It'll be another means for people to get in touch and submit music they want me to listen to, questions they want me to ask. I'll have a piece in there where we'll have like a spotlight for all the bands that are unsigned, and I will also do playlists for every show, including the songs that I listen to on the Weekly News Rant, so that you don't miss anything. So if you have any other ideas of stuff you might like to see on intothenecrosphere.com that doesn't include me stripping down to my birthday suit, then feel free to drop them in the comments, because we're in development right now. And once it's done, of course, I'll let you guys know. And I expect you to put it on your favorites and visit it at least thrice daily. Right, moving on. Bliss of Flesh have put out a brand new track called I Deny. French blackened death metalers Bliss of Flesh have premiered I Deny, the newest preview track off their forthcoming long player, Metapsychosis. That's due out on October the 17th via Black Lion Records. That previous Bliss of Flesh single didn't entirely blow me away. It wasn't bad. It wasn't quite top-notch worthy. I can't even remember whether I gave it a thumbs up. Be that as it may, if I can't remember, there's a good chance I probably didn't. Let's hear what this song sounds like. It's another one that's not bad, not blowing me away. There's something at the back end of this song with the way that they incorporate those lead guitars that reminds me of Septic Flesh a little bit. Like mid-career era Septic Flesh. That's not bad. But again, the song overall isn't particularly offensive, but it's not particularly inspiring either. I can think of at least 10 fucking bands out of France that I would much rather listen to than Bliss of Flesh. What it lacks is a sense of just malice and hatred. It's just something, I don't know. I kind of say it jokingly, but it truly is half jokingly. There's just something about it that there's a nastiness that's missing in the song. So not completely blowing me away. I can see maybe some folks will like it. I suspect those very same folks are truly and utterly weak at the knees at the idea of a brand new Afsky album. And of course, we listened to the previous Afsky single on this very podcast. I hated it. There is now a second single that has been released called Den der Ingenting ved Twiller Aldrich. Apologies to everybody from Denmark for the way in which I've just butchered your language, but it says here it's the second single from Afsky's upcoming studio record, Folloskab. That's out on October the 17th, 2025. I was even debating whether I should listen to this, but I know that this is going to be high up on a lot of people's most anticipated album of the year, or certainly for the next couple of months. So I'm going to do my best to give it a fair shake. Well, if that song was making your skin crawl, my apologies. I did let it run a little longer than I would normally do. And the reason for that, of course, is because they made us wait 2 minutes to hear any vocals. When the vocals did come, they sounded substandard, much like the rest of the song. This is not anywhere near as atrocious as that first single, but what I would say is, and it is relevant pertaining to what I'm about to talk about, but I mean, you want to talk about happy melodies? That's got a fucking happy sounding melody. It's not Death Heaven or fucking Life Lover, but it's certainly not. There's nothing about this that's dark. There's just, I don't know. It just feels to me like music for people that want to listen to black metal, but they're too afraid to plunge into the deep end. You know what I mean? So I'm going to give this a thumbs down once again. I think Afsky is the most overrated band on the face of the fucking planet, and certainly in the entirety of the scene. I cannot think of another band that is as revered as this turd, and yet I cannot possibly fathom how anybody could like any of it. Be that as it may, that's just my opinion. On the topic of opinions, I think, my friends, that it's time for the swirly of the week. Legion, sometimes these swirlies really do right themselves. And as a 6-year veteran of the podcasting game, I have now come to learn that there are certain guests that when I have them on the podcast, I can more or less set my watch to the deluge of fucking idiots that are going to creep out of the woodwork to share their hot takes with me almost as soon as I post the episode. These are not Legion members. They are, casual viewers, casual listeners, and believe that their opinion must be heard. And of course, I'm very open to hearing people's opinion. As far as I'm concerned, it's come one, come all. But there is a fine line between sharing an opinion and being an obnoxious cunt. The scum in question this week goes by the handle Z Big Nowakowski. And in response to my John Krieger from Black Braid episode that I posted last week, he fired off his opening salvo almost immediately after I posted the episode by writing, "Most overrated," in air quotes, metal band nowadays, silly happy melodies, silly concept / identity, but metalheads love campy, cheesy music, so here we are. Now, again, as I said, all opinions welcome. If he doesn't like the music, that's absolutely fine. I mean, I'm not going to ask anybody's permission who I have on the podcast, but that's a different story. But if he doesn't like the music, that's absolutely okay. I mean, God knows when it comes to wayward music takes, I have no shortage of those. As I learned from the outcry, based on the fact that last week I said something, still stick by it, and that is that there is no such thing as a perfect Venom album. Not every single song that Venom ever wrote is a unassailable masterpiece. But that aside, getting back to old Zach, there are two things that instantly struck me about his message. Number one was the use of the phrase, "so here we are." And usually that is the preserve of a social studies major at Berkeley University with blue hair shouting and yelling because somebody got misgendered or about some other fucking tripe, which is ironic given the fact that the other thing that stands out to me about old Zach's message is the idea that for some bizarre reason, John is silly to acknowledge his Native American heritage in Black Braid. And as we learn later on, Zach seems to genuinely take issue with the fact that it is included or influencing John's music whatsoever, which I absolutely do not fucking get. As we spoke on last week's episode, Alan Averill from Primordial, there's definitely an Irish twist to some of the things that Primordial does. I mean, all of the fucking bands we listen to, frankly, every fucking black metal band going all the way back to Bathory has had some sort of tip of the hat to their heritage. Why John can't do that, I have no fucking idea. In my view, he's pretty subtle about it. I don't think it's something that's in your face. And even if you wanted to make it in your face, as long as it sounds cool, who gives a shit? But anyway, Zach doesn't seem to like that. A couple of folks responded to him. One was somebody who goes by the handle Gabu Lujon. He said, listen to something else then. No one is stopping you. Fair comment. And of course, Zach got very upset by this and said, I've stated my opinion. What's your problem, clown? Or as I imagine he sounded at the time, I've stated my opinion. What's your problem, clown? I waited a few minutes before I sent a response. And the one thing that I was going to, of course, differ with him on was the idea that there's such a thing as a happy Black Braid song. Like, I've always felt that Black Braid sounds pretty morose, if nothing else. I mean, there's nothing that's happy about it. So respectfully, I send a reply. I've got to admit, everything else aside, I wrote, I'm genuinely at a loss to think of a single happy Black Braid song. Not bashing you for holding an opinion, but that criticism feels disingenuous, meaning I don't think that you've actually listened to Black Braid's music. I just think the impression I get by your unhinged comment is that you just hate the guy for the sake of it. That truly lit the fuse on old Zach's tampon, though, because he immediately responded with a paragraphs-long dissertation on how I should check out the recent clip for the dying breath of blah, blah, blah. He then once again makes a comment about the fact that that John doesn't shy away from his Indian heritage, calls it Casio metal. Frankly, I zoned out after probably the third sentence. Generally speaking, if somebody sends me a, several paragraphs message, whether at work or on the podcast, I'm telling you now, I probably am not going to read it unless in the first couple of sentences you are really able to grab my attention. Just not something I'm interested in doing. I don't have the time for it. I do try and always respond to everybody that comments, particularly on the YouTube channel. I like to engage with people. You guys know when you message me on Instagram, I tend to comment or reply back. But again, I'm not going to read I'm not going to read your goddamn life story. So again, in a nice way and trying to be polite, I respond back and say, I hate happy melodies to a point where I may be slightly oversensitive to them. I think that's been proven on the News Rant years to date. And I do not hear it on Black Braid 3. Sorry, mate. So I say, sorry, mate, again, as a means to be polite. I'm acknowledging that he has an opinion. I don't really like it. It doesn't sound to me like this is the kind of guy I would want to be friends with. But again, I'm not going to be rude to him for sharing an opinion on the channel because that's what debate is for. Oh my God, did that set him off? He flies off the handle. Why, sorry, you hear what you hear, I hear what I hear. I've literally wrote you an example of one black metal versus another. For me, it's like night and day, childish melodies and running Indian distorted words. Again, that's how I imagine he sounded. I just, my mind is boggled, honestly. Like, again, as I said, it's fine to, exchange a couple of messages, but to continue to press the argument when somebody clearly doesn't want to engage. And it's not that I don't want to engage because of time constraints or anything else. I don't want to engage because I don't give a fuck. Because your opinion does not merit me responding more than twice to whatever stupid fucking bullshit you're going to write to me. And frankly, I think this is just an example of social media discourse in 2025, in that there are a bunch of people like Zach who think that it is that they are not only entitled to share an opinion, which yes, they most definitely are, but they then go a step further. And if you don't completely abide by their opinion, or if you don't agree with them, then all of a sudden you're an asshole. And they will just keep on fucking shouting and whining and stomping their feet and having a fucking tantrum until you either block them or ignore them. And honestly, I think that, quite frankly, I don't want to sound like I'm an old man or a boomer, but quite frankly, Zach is a great example of why social media discourse, why we've gotten to a point where we've gotten to, because in my day, and I do sound like an old man now, but in my day, that kind of attitude, that kind of behavior would have earned you at the very least a fucking ass kicking. On this occasion, it's not going to earn him an ass kicking. I mean, he's, of course, banned from the show, banned from the channel. And, of course, it's going to earn him a double dunk, unflushed toilet swirly. All right, back to Metal Storm and November, whatever the hell they're called. Longtime guitarist leaves the band, undoubtedly listened to the news rant last week, heard my scathing commentary about that atrocious single that they put out. Much more exciting than that, the new Enthroned album is ready to be released. It says here, black metal formation Enthroned is ready to return with their 12th full-length installment, Ash Spawn. That is coming out on December the 5th, 2025, outside the window of Decibel's best albums of 2025, best albums of the year. The 9-piece music output was recorded at Ophusa Studio in London, UK, mixed by Stefano Santi at SPVN Studio in Milan, Italy, mastered by Phil Bashford at The Hive in London. I fucking loved the previous Enthroned album, so very excited about this one. The new single, or the first single they're putting out off this record, is called Ravia Saman. Let's hear what it sounds like. Tier 1 fucking excellent black metal. Definitely getting a top notch from me. I love that song. Cold Black Suns, their previous album, as well as Sovereigns, the one that came out before then, both fucking fantastic. I mean, this band really, when you go down the list of their releases, they haven't really missed at all. I mean, going all the way back to towards the Skull Throne of Satan, that record is fucking excellent. Armored Bestial Hell, masterpiece album, and then all the way down to Cold Black Suns. Yeah, they're a band who have been exceptionally consistent. I don't necessarily think always get the credit that they deserve. And I actually think, in terms of quality and in terms of just creativity, I think they're in a golden period at the moment for this band. Last two albums, like I said, great. Sounds to me like this new one's going to be fucking great as well. And good news, I have got in the diary. It's going to happen by the time that you hear this. It'll be like 3-4 days away. I'm going to be recording an interview with Norna Guest. So he will be on the podcast at some point, probably over the next 3-4 weeks. I've got a reasonably full slate between now and episode 300. Episode 300 guest has still not been confirmed. I had somebody from the podcast reach out to me to put me in touch with the PR person for Blackie Lawless turns out that apparently he does have somebody that does his PR for him. He doesn't do interview requests himself. So I reached out to that individual. They haven't come back to me yet. So again, we're at a bit of an impasse. I'll see if there's a few more levers that I can pull to make that happen. And like I said, I got a couple of other options too. I'm going to do something fucking special for episode 300, but the run up to episode 300, I can tell you right now, is going to be something quite fucking special. Next week, of course, there's Vincent Crowley. Week after, we've got Sensei Mike Hill from Tombs. That was, I would say, easily the best conversation, the best interview. It wasn't really an interview, but the best episode that he and I have recorded together, I think, by fucking miles. And I think at this point, he potentially holds the record for the highest number of appearances on the show, maybe with the exception of Cheyenne. But it was, it's really, really good. I can't wait to share that with you guys. And then I've got a couple of other very cool things happening as well. So between now and the end of the year, if you are into the Necrosphere diehard, you're in for a serious fucking treat. As far as Enthroned is concerned, that is top notch. Like I said, there's no question about that in my mind. That is absolutely top notch. And if the rest of the album sounds like that, it will be a pretty strong contender for that top 30 of 2025. The only top 30 that really fucking matters. All right, now I mentioned W.A.S.P, so I may as well just dive into another question because I had one year from a long time into the Necrosphere. Legionnaire Shears of the Devil asks, what is your opinion on W.A.S.P, the Headless Children? My opinion is exceptionally positive. I think that the Headless Children and the Crimson Idol are my two favorite W.A.S.P albums. The Crimson Idol because that was one that I kind of grew up with. It was one of my, the first W.A.S.P albums that I got were Inside the Electric Circus, Live in the Raw, and the Crimson Idol. I loved the Crimson Idol because it was a little darker, a little less glam. And when I got the Headless Children, that to me kind of continued to give me that same vibe that the Crimson Idol had given me, which is, again, partly why I love it so much. In terms of favorite songs on there, I think that the song The Headless Children is maybe the best thing that W.A.S.P ever recorded. If you go back and you check out any old videos of them doing that, back in the late 80s or, early 90s of them doing that live, holy fuck, it sounded incredible. So incredible song. And on I think this was on like the bonus edition of that record, they had a song called For Whom the Bell Tolls, which was not a cover of the Metallica track, but yeah, really fucking excellent. So yes, short answer to your question. I absolutely fucking love the Headless Children. Moving swiftly along to some more music, Author and Punisher drop a new single. The official release day of Author and Punisher's new studio record, Nocturnal Birding, is getting closer. Before the latter hits the streets on October the 3rd, the band drops the third advanced single entitled Titmouse. Now, Author and Punisher were a band that I kind of had a not quite awakening to on the News Rant, but the last time that we had them on the News Rant, they did end up impressing me far more than I had initially expected, although a song title like Titmouse doesn't bode well. That being said, let's hear what this one sounds like. Not bad. Not as good as that previous single, I don't think. But it's not bad. It feels to me like a song that probably needs to be enjoyed in the context of the album. I tell you what it reminds me of a little bit, and that is Absent in Body. And maybe that's because when I recorded my upcoming Mike Hill episode with him yesterday, we spoke about Absent in Body, and we spoke about the whole Scott Kelly debacle. Yeah, this song probably achieves nothing other than to make me want to go back and listen to Absent in Body right now. But I'm still with you guys for a couple of minutes, though. This one gets a, nothing offensive, nothing amazing either. One more question. We've got Kelu666 asking me, question for the news rant. There are many older bands that keep going, living off their legacy and hits, but they haven't been able to release anything that comes close in ages. What bands, according to you, are either still going strong or even releasing their best material in years/decades other than Testament? Kelu666, you know me well because they would be one of the first bands that I mentioned. But immediately coming to mind, Paradise Lost, Napalm Death, Cannibal Corpse, and Mayhem. I'm trying to think who else would spring to mind. I think Shane Embury, generally speaking, with whatever he does, he's putting out absolutely tier one music. I think Crowbar, the last couple of Crowbar albums were fucking superb. It's weird actually with them, like they are a legacy band when you think about it because they've been around for ages, but I don't think of them as a legacy band for some reason. And then, you could argue High on Fire is a legacy band as well. Maybe not quite as old as some of the others, but I still think that High on Fire is putting out really superb music. But yeah, like of the really old guard, those were the four that I would instantly say are still there. They're still doing the business. The new Paradise Lost album, Ascension, fucking magnificent. I mean, it genuinely is magnificent. The last Napalm Death album was a masterpiece. Not sure how long it's going to be before we hear another. The last Cannibal Corpse record was superb. The last Mayhem record, Demon, I absolutely loved. Can't wait to hear what they do next. So those four would be the real standouts for me. I'm sure there are others. There is of course Testament. Within the thrash scene, I mean, the most recent Destruction isn't too bad. It's not as good as anything that they did. I wouldn't necessarily say it isn't entirely doing the business, I wouldn't say. And I'm just going down the list of stuff in my mind. There's Sodom. The most recent Sodom stuff hasn't been particularly interesting to me. I mean, obviously, we know Metallica, fucking dreadful. Megadeth, absolutely atrocious. I heard they put out like 30 seconds of a new song off the so-called final Megadeth album. It's fucking total muck. Anthrax. I mean, Anthrax without John Bush is not Anthrax. I feel like I would ever want to listen to. Yeah, I can't think of any others off the top of my head, but that is an excellent question. Thank you very much for submitting it. Now, on the topic of legacy bands, few have the legacy of Agnostic Front. Perhaps not the kind of band you would expect me to have on Into the Necrosphere, given the focus on death and black metal. But it says here on November the 7th, 2025, the New York hardcore legends Agnostic Front will put out their new studio album, Echoes in Eternity. It is comprised of 15 new tracks. It'll be their first long player since 2019's Get Loud. It was recorded and mixed by Mike Dijon and Zeus, mastered by Zeus at Planet Z. I like Zeus, and I like his production very much. The album's opening track, Way of War, is released and serves as a first taste of what to expect. I'll talk about my thoughts on Agnostic Front as a whole in a second, but let's hear what this track sounds like first.
We're shooting right now as hard as we can. We're going to call it back down here. One more try. That's going to be about all we need. 75 meters away from the LZ. Once you're down, give it a try. Just keep going down your left hand up. Make a left hand up. Going down. Get there.
I love the smell of the morning. The smell. You know that gasoline smell. Oh, hell. Victory. Don't let it put my hair.
Not bad. When that song stopped around the 1 minute 40 mark, I was looking for a slightly more punishing beatdown than what we ultimately ended up getting. Instead of a beatdown, we kind of got a bit of a sort of, I don't know, a rock and roll break. It's not, and that's not bad. I mean, the song as a whole isn't bad either. I think it's definitely a lot better than anything I can recall hearing off Get Loud. Without a doubt, Get Loud I thought wasn't a good record at all. Maybe also The American Dream Died, and maybe possibly even My Life My Way. I'm actually a very big fan of Agnostic Front, and like I said, I know it's not a band that the average Legionnaire is necessarily going to gravitate towards, but going all the way back to Victim in Pain, I've been a big fan of this band. I love everything, including Something's Gotta Give, Dead Yuppies. I thought Another Voice and Warriors in particular were fucking sensational. So, I'll always have a soft spot for this band. Maybe also one of the bands I've seen live most, and they never, ever disappoint. One thing that I cannot more strongly suggest that you do, and I don't care what kind of fucking music you're into. Roger Miret is 61 years old now. He's had some storied health problems. So you never know what might happen. You never know when you're not. And this is true, by the way, as I've said many times before on the News Rant, of a great many bands, but you never know what might come up that means that you're never able to see them live ever again, or that your one opportunity to see them live goes out the window. So if you can see Agnostic Front live, they'll definitely be on tour, I would assume, after this record comes out. Do yourself a favor. It doesn't matter whether you don't like their music. Once you see them live, you'll see exactly what I mean. They are one of the fucking best of the best when it comes to stage work. Absolutely extraordinary. I mean, as far as the album is concerned, I would say the positive thing about it is that it's an excuse for them to go back on tour. So if they do come to London, you will see me there without a shadow of a doubt. And another thing I would strongly recommend is they have got a documentary that came out in 2017 called The Godfathers of Hardcore. Definitely something to watch. It is absolutely fucking fantastic. One of the best music documentaries I've ever seen in my entire life. Very touching as well from the perspective of the relationship between Vinnie Stigma and Roger Miret. So if you haven't seen it yet, add it to your list. Corrosion of Conformity reveal Fire and Water cover. It says here, Corrosion of Conformity are back with a special rendition of Fire and Water by English rock band Free. The classic track was originally released in 1970 on the album of the same name. Corrosion of Conformity's version came spontaneously in the studio during some downtime while recording their forthcoming new full-length album set for release next year. It serves as the first of the Riff-Mississippi studio jam sessions, a special collection of jammed out interpretations of songs by some of the band's favorite artists. Had Grind Your Mind, another long-serving member, high-ranking member of the Legion, drop me a note and say how cool it would be to have Pepper Keenan on the podcast. And I do believe he's right. So if you do go out and you buy yourself any Corrosion of Conformity off a Bandcamp or anything like that, you put that Jackson shout out in the comments and maybe we can make it happen. For now, though, let's hear what Fire and Water sounds like.
Say goodbye, but
I love it. I'm really looking forward to hearing what this Riff-Mississippi studio jam session collection is going to sound like as well. I couldn't help thinking as I was listening to that Pepper sounds a little bit like Neil from Clutch. The song, generally speaking, sounds a little bit like Clutch, at least their interpretation of it. But I think it's fucking great. And, again, as is the request of a high-ranking member of the Legion, if I can get Pepper Keenan on the podcast, I will definitely fucking jump at that opportunity. This gets a thumbs up without a shadow of a doubt. It is perfect beer drinking music, perfect barbecuing music, and it is getting colder here now, but I can tell you right now, just because it's a little rainy outside or a little cold, it doesn't mean them barbecue fires die down. And there is fucking nothing vegan that goes anywhere near my grill. That's another guarantee I can give you. A further guarantee, if you want one, is that next week's episode with Vincent Crowley from Acheron is going to fucking slap you so hard, you're not going to know what hit you. Even the dog, as you can hear in the background, is excited about it. I'm super excited about sharing it with you. It's going to be the first in a series. Like I said, we're probably going to do it across maybe 3 or 4 different episodes, which we'll do every couple of months. But the whole idea of it is to really deep dive into his background, into his history. This first episode focuses heavily on the early days of the Tampa Bay death metal scene, his formative years, his time in Nocturnus. It is fascinating, and it's coming your way next week. Coming your way right now, though, is a song that we absolutely, it was mandatory that we finished this episode with a Samhain track. And I'm going to give you one of my very favorites in a discography that is fucking tier 1 from top to bottom. This is a song called The Howl. I hope you guys enjoy it. I certainly hope that you have a great week ahead, and whatever it is, and whatever it is that you are doing, and wherever it is that you are, stay safe, stay healthy, my friends, and I'll see you bad motherfuckers again next week.
You